participating and voting. And I'm sure many of you have already kind of participated in Zoom, GoToMeeting, Microsoft Teams, like all the things, right? And hopefully you haven't had too much fatigue up until this point. But I want to introduce you to remote meeting. This open meeting of the MAPC Council meeting is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order on March 12th, 2020, which suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all meetings of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely, and I think we're experiencing that right now. The order, which is posted along with the agenda on MAPC's website, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely, so as long as reasonable public access is afforded and so that public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Accordingly, the public may view the proceedings live streamed, that's right, we're live, on YouTube at www.youtube.com/user/MAPC Metro Boston. For this meeting, the MAPC Council is convening its members. I'm getting to the recorded part, but thank you. For this meeting, MAPC Council is convening its members by video conference via Zoom. Council members, I lost my spot. Council members have received their login credentials when registering for the meeting. If you have not already done so, council members, could you please rename yourselves with your full name and affiliation? So for me, mine will say Erin Wortman, and I put Stoneham instead of Town of, so it's very easy to see, just so staff knows who we are and where we're from. And please note, this meeting is being recorded, as some probably received that pop-up. If you're joining us by video or by phone, you may have heard a voice come over the phone, and that most council members are participating by video conference. Accordingly, and this is probably really important, please be aware that if you share your camera, which I hope you do, that other folks may be able to see you. The recording of this meeting and the caucuses will be posted to the MAPC website as soon as practical. I am just looking. Okay, so business meeting ground rules. We are going to be turning over to the first item on the agenda, but before we do so, I'm going to cover a few ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. Number one, please remember that your phone or computer should be muted unless you are asked to speak. Number two, please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. And finally, number three, we are utilizing the Zoom chat feature. On my side, it's over here, where we will feature all motions, seconds, and voting. We will need to be able to identify you throughout the meeting. Please ensure that you have identified yourself and that you understand how to use the Zoom chat feature and how to, quote, raise your hand. If you look at the bar at the bottom of the Zoom screen, one of the buttons should say chat, image of a chat bubble. And if you click on it, you will be brought to a chat. I know some of you have already used that, as I've seen some chat features publicly and to myself. And make sure one of the buttons should say participant at the outline of a person. The participant box should show up on the right when you click on that button. At the bottom right of the participant box, there will be a button to raise and lower your hands. If you have any difficulties, please identify the problem in the chat feature and an MAPC staff member will assist you. And I just want to kind of take a second real quick off script to really thank the MAPC staff for the dress rehearsals and going over all the technical things while living our lives and doing their regular jobs to prepare us for this meeting. This is a very large endeavor, and it really would be impossible without all the staff members who have been committed and working really hard to troubleshoot all our challenges through this. So council members who must call in rather than join by video will be asked by our technical support team. Sorry, I have a pop-up. will be asked by our technical support team to identify themselves to the team. The technical staffer will rename those callers, which I think we've already done. Voters by phone participants will be oral and will occur after all others have voted on a given motion. Now, if you please will be a little patient with us, we will call the roll as required by law. So with that, I am going to ask Heidi Anderson, our operations manager at MAPC, to unmute and begin to call the roll. And again, I really thank you all for your patience in advance, and what a momentous occasion having our first virtual council meeting. So Heidi?
Great, thank you, Erin. Good morning, everybody. We started taking some attendance while you were in the waiting room. So what we will then do is just move on to those seats that we have not yet recorded. I'm going to start with gubernatorial candidates first, just so that we can move a little bit along. I'm going to be calling out your name in alphabetical order. Please note in the chat section whether you are present or not. I have Catherine Banesh, I have John Bouchard, Sean Canty. Okay, moving along. I can't see my chat. I have a very small screen and I'm trying to do a number of things at once. Bear with me. David Moeller. Okay. Jim Montgomery, I believe, is present. Hayes Morrison. Chris Osgood. Vandana Rao. Laura Shurtleff. Courtney Rainey. Juan Vega. And Elaine Vina. Okay, thank you. We will move along to the gubernatorial appointees. I've already recorded several of you. I will call out the remaining of the list in alphabetical order by last name. Samawa Arenas. Sol Carbonell. Kelly Chung. Daniel Garcia de Coteau. I apologize if I pronounced your name wrong. Jordan Geis. Gina Martinez. Ramani Srapata. Monica Tibbetts-Nutt. Sam Wong. Okay, thank you. We'll be recording all of this in the chat section, so I'll be able to go back and count you. We're going to move on to the cities and towns. I'm going to call out, do this in alphabetical order by municipal name. I will first call the representative. If the representative is not present, then I will call on the alt rep if there is one. Okay, Acton, Joan Gardner. Okay, we have both Jenny Raid and Adam Chapdelaine from Arlington. Yolanda Greaves is here. Sandra Hackman is here. Okay, Bellingham. Okay, Faro. It's looking like everybody who is registered has shown up. Okay, is Allison Steinfeld here from Brookline? Okay. Kristen Kastner, Burlington. Danvers, Aaron Henry. Okay. Christopher Dwelly, Dover. Okay. Peter Fippen, Essex. Tony Souza, Everett. Marzi Galaska, Everett, Alt. Eamon Earls, Franklin. Ann Lee, Hanover. Joseph Colangelo, Hanover, Alt Rep. David S. Schuler, Hingham. Timothy Gordon, Holbrook. Tina Hine, Holliston. Claire Wright, Hopkinton. Elaine Lazarus, Hopkinton, Alt. Jack Hunter, Hudson. Christina Johnson, Hudson, Alt. Chris Diorio, Hull. Carolyn Britt, Ipswich. William Pollitt, Ipswich, Alt Rep. Richard Canale, Lexington. James Marsh, Lynn. Robert Dolan, Linfield. Emily Catamartori, Linfield, Alt Rep. Chris De Silva, Maynard. Robert Weiss, Millis. Nicole Riley, Millis, Alt Rep. Alice Ackerman, Nahant. Jennifer Kara Newton. Richard McCarthy, Norfolk. Jason Brown, Norwell. Jean Delios, Reading, Alt Rep. Jeanette Fasano, Saugus. Hey, Lou Guido, Stoughton. Pamela McCarthy, Stoughton, Alt Rep. Jesse Stedman, Stowe. Angela Ippolito, Swampscott, Alt Rep. Kevin Harutunian, Topsfield. Okay, James Johnson, Walpole Art Rep. Steve Magoon, Watertown. Ellen Gibbs, Wellesley. Aime Kalani Ayu, I'm sorry about butchering that name, Weston. Steve Olenov, Westwood. Robert Headland, Weymouth. Carl Edsel, Weymouth Alt Rep. Valerie Gingrich, Wilmington. And we have all the rest of our cities and towns have already been ticked off in attendance. Thank you, Erin.
Thank you, Heidi. While Heidi calculates quorum, which I believe we have, I just want, oh, I got the thumbs up. We have calculated quorum. Thank you all for joining us. And thank you for having us to be able to do business today. Just a couple other things before we move on to the agenda. I realize I did not kind of explain how to rename ourselves, and those who have joined maybe a little after we started, if you are joining us by your computer, tablet, or device on video, and you push your mouse, like scroll your mouse over your picture, the three little dots on the top right corner, just click on that. And the option to rename yourself is the third option down. So we just ask you to put your full name and then dash and then your affiliation. So like for cities and towns, like I am Erin Wortman and I do dash Stoneham, okay? Just so we have an understanding of where everyone is. Okay, and then excellent news on quorum. Thank you so much, Heidi. I really appreciate it. So next up on the agenda is the Charles Elliott Scholarship Award, and it's Joanna Setow, I hope I didn't say that incorrectly, North Quincy High School, presented by Harriet Davis. So I would like to introduce Harriet Davis to present the Charles W. Elliott Scholarship to Joanna Setow, North Quincy High School. Harriet, take it away. If you're... I got a lot of screens. So is Harriet here? And if so, is she unmuted?
There we are. I think it's all set. Good morning.
Hi, Harriet.
How are you?
Excellent.
I'm Harriet Davis, and I've served on the selection committee since my mother, Marjorie Davis, died 20 years ago. My mother was a former president of the MAPC in the 90s. And I've served the town of Wenham as selectman, and I'm currently on the Historic Preservation Board, and I've served as chairman of our CPC committee. So you can see I was very happy to join Larry Elliott on the Scholarship Selection Committee. And this year we were joined by Heidi and Ann. We had 17 applicants this year, and we all want to thank every one of them for taking the time to learn about Charles Elliott and to fill out the application. What was apparent is the impact of the coronavirus on some applicants was clearly confused by the truncation of their senior year in high school, and many of them were unclear about their future. Nevertheless, there was a tight group of excellent candidates, and after much examination, this committee was delighted to award the scholarship this year to Joanna Setow, a senior from North Quincy High School, whose application showed focus, integrity, purpose, and leadership skills. She is to attend the American University in Washington, D.C. in a 3-year BA interdisciplinary program, incorporating economics, government, and law. She feels she'll be able to build on her environmental science studies in high school and to be able to create legislation to make changes in land use policy and environmental protection. We all wish her well, look forward to hearing from her, perhaps now and definitely in the future. Thank you. Congratulations, Joanna.
And since everyone's on mute, I will clap for the group. Oh, okay, Emily, with your show off hand clapping. Yes, excellent for Joanna. I'm not sure if she's on, but thank you, Harriet, for your work and your words. I'm sorry, is she on? Can someone?
Yes.
She is? Oh, okay.
I saw her on the list of
Sorry,
participants.
I have 5 screens of faces. Joanna.
Partnering with the scholarship.
Oh, there you are, Joanna.
Casey,
Would you like to
call on her
say?
to speak?
Yes, would you like to say some words?
Yeah, sure.
Great.
Thank you so much for awarding me this. I don't appreciate this award. Unfortunately, cannot stay for the rest of the call, but it's to see how this body functions. And it's just very humbling to see that I was picked as the recipient of this award of such a large application pool. And thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Joanna, and we wish you nothing but success in your future endeavors and your educational pursuits. And great minds like yours are always needed, and I think that it sounds like you're in a great direction to make great change. So on behalf of MAPC, I'd like to wish you well and congratulations again. Cool. All right. And thank you again, Harriet, for obviously serving on the scholarship review committee, but also for kind of giving us some nice context for the award. It's really great. Thank you. Okay, next up, now that we have quorum, so we're going to go to the business meeting portion of the meeting agenda. And can I just say, not to toot our own horn here, we are right on time with everything, so toot toot. Good job, everyone. So I'm just going to review the norms for participating and voting, especially those who had joined us a little later in the meeting. So all motions, seconds, in voting will be done in the chat section. Again, the chat section is should be to the right of your screen if you are on video, and then on the phone, obviously we'll have to do it orally. So let's do, I guess, a little warm up on this. We'll do something nice and easy. So what the first item for the business meeting is the approval of the annual council meeting on May 29th, 2019, and the fall council meeting of November 6th, 2019. So what we're going to do, let me just, before we do motions and stuff, but I appreciate your motions, everyone in the chat function. So I'm going to ask for a joint motion to approve the minutes for both meetings. Once the motion is made and seconded, which it appears the motion has been made by Frank and John DePriest, I'm going to say that's a second because you also motioned. And now we're going to do the voting. So how we're going to facilitate the vote tally, council members will either vote for ayes, and we'll allow everyone to do the ayes, including the oral vote, correct? Heidi, Rebecca, Mark, yes? Okay, just nod with me. Okay, great. And then we're gonna do the nays and then the abstentions, okay? So if everyone can get their fingers in the chat function, we have a motion and second on the floor to do a joint vote. Oh, okay, everyone's very excited to vote. I appreciate that. Here we go. Vote away, everyone. And I'll give a pause once the ayes are done voting. And the reason we're splitting, and just so everyone's aware, the reason we're kind of blocking the votes this way is so we can capture it easier. So for those who are reading, those who are going through that, we're able to kind of see, okay, everyone good on the ayes? All right, how about some nays? Do we have any nays? I'll just give 10 seconds. Great, and then abstentions? Great. Oh. Okay. Great. Heidi, if you could give me a thumbs up, it looks like the motion passes. Thank you. And then for future voting, so it's AYE for I, and then abstain, ABSTAIN, and then the nay is NAY. Okay, we are just going to keep it moving. So that motion passes. Thank you very much, everyone. That was excellent, excellent work. A lot more votes ahead of us. So next I'm going to call up Sam Seidel, who is our treasurer, to present the report of the treasurer. So Sam, take it away.
Hi, everybody, and nice to meet you all. I am Sam Seidel. I'm the new treasurer. The first thing I want to do is thank my predecessor, Tabor Keeley, who did this role for many, many years. Did a wonderful job and has been wonderful in this transition. So thank you. And thank you, Aaron. Good morning to all. We've got a lot on the treasurer's report, so I want to just move through that stuff as quickly as we can. We will have votes at the end of each section, so just so you know, we'll do more voting. So the first thing we're going to look at, consider is the renewal of the borrowing authority. And let me just go through that quickly. In the past, MAPC has occasionally borrowed funds for cash flow purposes. We have not used this authority often, but our yearly request for authorization for MAPC to borrow against our annual assessment is prudent to protect against unknown contingencies. Before you use a motion to renew our authority to borrow, would someone be willing to make a motion? I see a motion made and I see a second. Is there any discussion on the borrowing authority? Seeing none, hearing none, then I would like to call for a vote. We will do it in the same order. We'll do the ayes first, the nays second, and then the abstentions at that point.
And Sam, for the minute purposes, if you could just say who motions and who seconds, that would be really helpful.
Yes, and I'll have
no problem. And then Heidi, if you could give, or anyone on MAPC staff, if you could give the thumbs up once we kind of figure that out. Great. Okay. Sorry, Sam.
No, that's great. That's very helpful. So I see the ayes, I think, have completed. Now I'd like to ask if you have a nay, a no vote, please vote it now for the noes, the nays. Seeing none, hearing none. Abstentions? If you are abstaining, please indicate that now. Seeing none, the motion as presented is adopted. Thank you all. All right, so now we're going to go on to the FY21 budget for MAPC. This is the next item on the agenda, and I want to just give you a little bit of background on the budget. so you are up to speed on it. And there's a budget sheet in your packet, so you can review that. It's the summary sheet, and you should have that in your packet. Like many public agencies, MAPC faces some financial challenges as a result of COVID-19, the current recession, and declines in public revenues. As a result, the budget we present this year, it has been developed in a very conservative and cautious approach. Here are some significant changes from the FY20 budget, so from last year's budget. On the revenue side, MAPC will see a reduction in revenue this year of roughly $600,000. Broadly speaking, the agency gets its revenue from four main sources. It's expected that philanthropy and federal funding will be stable this year. And as a consequence, those numbers in this year's budget are held at mainly at the FY20 levels. However, state funds, municipal contracts, and procurement revenue are expected to decline. And that accounts for the reduction in revenue that we're talking about. So here are the ways that MAPC is addressing that on the expenditure side. First, the agency has instituted $200,000 in cuts to expenses, and some of those cuts are painful cuts. There's no question about that. Also, you should know that MAPC is not filling any currently vacant positions in the agency, or will be filling them only later this year in the fiscal year if the situation changes. But as of right now, no currently vacant positions will be filled. And additionally, there will be no raises for staff this year. As we know, the agency is prepared to revisit these steps on a quarterly basis and to make prudent adjustments either up or down based on revenues. The combined impacts of reduced revenue and increased administrative costs in FY21 put the new overhead rate at 123%, which is higher than FY20, but it's still below the 125% limit. One reason for this new rate is the cost to the agency of expanded FMLA, Family and Medical Leave Act, and sick leave provisions adopted by the Congress. Of course, we support these expanded benefits. However, while private entities can recoup these payments through the tax system, public agencies are currently required to absorb the costs in full. This represents a real challenge for an agency like MAPC. As you can imagine, it's been a challenging time for everybody at MAPC as it has faced the upheavals caused by COVID-19. Cities and towns have required major additional services to address the crisis, and MAPC has been there to provide these services. We know our communities will continue to need additional services from MAPC in responding to the pandemic and in planning for the recovery. That is why every possible source of revenue is needed to make this conservative budget work. I personally, as the new treasurer, I want to thank the finance staff and all their hard work, in particular Sheila Winter, for all her hard work in getting this budget together for your review. Her team's dedication does not go unnoticed. This concludes my report on the FY21 budget. Are there any questions on the presentation? Seeing none, there's a motion before you. Would somebody make the motion? I see Robert Cohen made a motion and Mo Handel seconded the motion. Any discussion? Seeing none, I would ask that the ayes be recorded first. Those in favor voting aye. Ayes may be completed at this point. Those voting no, the nays, I would ask that you record your votes now. Seeing none. Abstentions. If you're abstaining, please indicate in the chat function now. Seeing none, the motion is carried and the budget is passed. I want to thank you all for your work and support there. The last item in front of us is the adoption of the local assessment. And I also here want to just give you a brief report on that, and then we can consider it as a body. Under Proposition 2.5, MAPC has the ability to raise our assessment 2.5% each year. Like many communities are doing now, we've thought long and hard about this, including discussions in one of our officers' meetings and 2 of our executive committee meetings. The officers and the executive committee members felt it was essential to utilize the 2.5% increase to ensure the full delivery of services to our cities and towns through the remainder of the pandemic and the beginning of the recovery. The amount is small for communities in almost all cases, but it provides very flexible dollars to the agency to respond to communities in the region, especially in this time of need. Because DLTA and other programs that support technical assistance to cities and towns may suffer cutbacks in the state appropriations process, the assessment becomes even more important. That's my report. Before you is a motion to adopt the FY21 municipal assessment. Would somebody be willing to make that motion? I see Yolanda Greaves making the motion, and I see a second from Jared Johnson. At this point, I would ask, is there discussion? Is there discussion? Seeing none. At this point, I would ask for the ayes voting yes on the motion. Thank you. Keep going. Oh. I believe the ayes have been recorded. At this point, I would ask for the noes. If you're voting no on the motion, please indicate now. Are there abstentions? Any abstentions? Please record those now. The voting is complete, and I would just note for the clerk, for Heidi, yes, please indicate your abstentions, that I would like to be recorded in the affirmative on all 3 votes. In the motion, the voting is complete and the motion has passed, and the local assessment has been adopted. I want to thank you all for your participation, your commitment, and all your hard work. And with that, I will turn it back to Erin. Thank you very much. That concludes the treasurer's report for this year.
Great, thanks, Sam. And now you can exhale. Woohoo! So great work, all. Thank you again to the finance team. How fortunate are we non-finance team people to kind of benefit for the finance team's work in making it look very easy. So thank you, all people who were involved with that. It's a huge feat, and I know how difficult it is, and I really appreciate that. So it was a great report, it was great work, and I'm really excited for the year ahead. Speaking of the year ahead, next up on the agenda is election of officers by full council. So I'm going to call up the report of the nominating committee, Chair Jenny Raitt from the town of Arlington, to present the report. And yeah, Jenny?
Good morning, everybody. And thank you for letting me present the report from the nominating committee. I also want to thank Heidi, Rebecca, and Mark for their support in convening the nominating committee, which was a very brief meeting. We met on April 28th, 2020, and the committee is comprised of Sharonda Almeida, gubernatorial designee, George Proakis, the city of Somerville, myself from the town of Arlington, Steve Silviera, gubernatorial designee, and Elaine Vanya, ex officio. The committee, as I stated, met on April 28th to select a chair and a co-chair. I was selected as chair, and I'm reporting out now to the full council to review the nominations for the officers. The nominating committee recommends the following individuals to serve as officers of the Metropolitan Area Planning Council for terms of office to begin on May 27th, 2020, and to serve until the next annual council meeting. For president, we've nominated Aaron Wortman from Stoneham Town. For vice president, Adam Chapdelaine, Arlington Town. For treasurer, Sam Seidel, gubernatorial. And for secretary, Sandra Hackman, Town, Bedford. So I want to say that before the council considers the slate, I want to see if there are any nominations from the floor. Please make your nomination by typing into the chat section. I'll wait a little bit. And seeing that there are none, no additional nominations, I'd like to then request a joint motion to close the nominations and to also elect the slate of candidates approved by the nominating committee. Thank you. I have a motion from Mo Handel and seconded by Bob Cohen. And so with that, that slate again is Aaron Wortman, president, Adam Chapdelaine, vice president, Sam Seidel, treasurer, and Sandra Hackman, secretary. And now in the Zoom chat feature again, the motion has been made and seconded, and council members are asked to begin with their aye votes. Okay. I am also recording an aye vote. Now I'm checking to see if there are any nay votes. Anybody voting no? Would anybody like to abstain? Any abstentions? Okay, I think that may conclude the vote, and it appears that the vote carries at this point. So with that, I would like to say thank you and turn it back to Aaron Wortman.
Thank you, Jenny, and thank you to the entire nominating committee for your work on this. I really appreciate it, and obviously thank you to the council for letting me have another year doing this. I really appreciate it, and I guess I speak for the officers when I say that, so thank you. So next up, and if you will allow me to geek out for 1 minute, we are going to do the election of the executive committee by individual caucuses. So what we were going to do, what's going to happen is that staff is going to invite delegates to caucus to elect executive committee members. Council members will be moved to their respective caucus breakout rooms to vote. The caucuses will be moderated by cities. They will be moderated cities. Roslyn. Towns is Mark Rassicott. Ex officio is Martin Pillsbury. And gubernatorial is Rebecca Davis. Each caucus will elect 5 members, except for cities who will elect 4, as Boston is a permanent member. After the caucuses are completed, the votes will be tallied and the council members are moved back to the main meeting. So we'll all join back here when everyone's done. And the moderators, those people who I just mentioned, will report the results of those caucuses. Okay, so if we are I guess we will get a pop-up.
Yes, hi everyone. My name is Sasha
yes.
Purdy. I'm supporting with the logistics today. You will receive a pop-up on your screen that will invite you to a breakout room. Please stay in the breakout room for the whole time. If you find that you are in the incorrect caucus by any chance, please let your facilitator know and I will be able to move you to the correct room. Please do not leave the meeting. You will be invited back to the main room with the same sort of pop-up after we are done with voting. And if you have any questions, please continue to use the chat. I'm opening the breakout rooms now. For folks who are tuning in to our live stream, we will have a few staff who will be staying in the main area. We will return to the main room within the next 10 minutes or so. Thank you.
Carolyn, this is Emily. I see you and just wanted to check to see if you needed to be in a caucus.
I'm sorry, if I what?
Did you need to be in a breakout room? You may have to accept something on your screen.
Okay, so I have thank you for attending. Okay, vitamin.
Okay, Karen. Oh, perfect. Good morning, Mayor.
Hey there, how are you?
Good. So we are currently broken out into caucus and people will return shortly.
Okay.
We are in the main room, if you will. Andrew, I think I had you come in, as well as, I think there was someone else. Is anyone that's in this main room supposed to be in a caucus? If you are, we can send you to the appropriate place. You can use the chat box to let me know. If not, I'll mute us until everyone gets back.
Great. Sounds good. Thanks, Emily. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Welcome, Mayor Curtatone. We just are finishing up our caucus, and so people will be joining us fairly soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for coming back in. We're just waiting for a few more folks to join us and we will start very soon. Thank you.
Okay, everyone, welcome back. Is everyone back? Give me a thumbs up. Oh, give me a thumbs up if everyone's back. I love it. All right, great. Thank you so much. And was that exciting or what? Yeah? All right. That's okay if it wasn't. I think I just lead a sad life. Okay, great. I am just getting back to my agenda here. So great. I think what we're going to do now is we're going to report out from the different caucuses. Is that correct? Or are we waiting? Yes? Yes. Okay. That's what I thought. All right. I have a lot of screens happening, one computer screen, but a lot of boxes. So thank you for your patience in advance. Okay, great. So let's start with cities. How does that sound? Can we report out from the cities, please?
Yes, good morning, everyone. My name is Rosalind Valsamon from MAPC. And so we have our newly elected representatives. For cities are Mayor Joseph Curtatone of Somerville, Tom Daniel of Salem, Joseph DePriest of Chelsea, and Mayor Yvonne Spicer of Framingham. And it was a unanimous vote.
Great, congratulations to all. Thank you so much for that report out. Okay, next up, we're going to do towns. Mark Rassicott, could you report out, please?
Good morning. The representatives elected from the towns include Yolanda Greaves from Ashland, Mo Handel from Needham, Tabor Keeley from Milton, Steve Olenoff from Westwood, Jennifer Raitt from Arlington, and again, it was a unanimous vote.
Great, thank you so much, Mark, and congratulations to the town newly elected delegates as well. Next up is ex officio, Martin. Will you report out, please? He's keeping us in suspense, apparently. Okay, we're just going to jump to gubernatorial and then we'll go back to ex officio. So Rebecca, I see your face. So would you mind doing gubernatorial?
Sure. For our gubernatorial representatives, we have Sharonda Almeida, Karen Canfield, Robert Cohen, Jared Johnson, and Steve Silvera.
Congratulations, all gubernatorial newly elected delegates. Congratulations. And Martin, are you ready to share about ex officio?
Yes, we have 4 candidates. A slate of 4 were elected unanimously. Hayes Morrison from Massport, Vandana Rao from MWRA, Juan Vega from Economic Development, and Elaine Vigna from DHCD.
Congratulations again to all ex officio and all newly elected officers. Thank you so much. And thank you, delegates, for our first virtual caucus. That was actually really cool. And I thanked the caucus I was in, but thank you to those staff members who facilitated those votes and those who facilitated those conversations. I really appreciate it. So congratulations all. Okay, next up is the report of the executive director. Mark, are you ready to report?
I'm ready.
All right, let's do it.
Thank you all very much. Folks, I have to say this is in many ways the most unusual executive director's report I've ever delivered, either to a council meeting or to the executive committee. First, for obvious reasons, because it's virtual. I'm so pleased at our amazing attendance today and all the additional folks on YouTube as well. People really came out for us, and I hope that means came out for the work that we do and the assistance and support that we provide to cities and towns and to all the people who live and work in the region. The second reason why this is unusual, of course, is because none of us could have predicted 3 months ago where we would be right now and what would become the focus of our lives. And that is true for all of you. It's true in your families, and it's true in the places you work. It's certainly true in your cities and towns. It has not been an easy time to be a municipal official. And to be perfectly honest, it has not been an easy time to be a staff person at MAPC. Every day we wake up and we are asked to do 8 things that we don't know how to do, and we have to learn on the job. And a lot of us who went to planning school did not learn about it there. And very frequently we have demands and requests from our communities, from our state officials, and even from people in need that we have to meet. I've heard such incredible stories over the past few months about how local officials and others in government have risen to that need. I've heard about mayors who drive meals around to low-income families in their communities and deliver them personally. I've heard about a city manager who received a call at 10 o'clock in the night by a person who had just tested positive and been kicked out of her apartment with her children and needed a place to stay that would be safe for her. I've seen state officials respond to demands from individual communities to deal with substantial outbreaks in those communities, sometimes at a nursing home, sometimes at a congregate facility, sometimes in a neighborhood, sometimes as a result of a funeral or another gathering, which brought many people together and gave the opportunity to the disease to spread. And although I don't agree with every decision that everyone has made, none of us possibly could, I'm reminded how fortunate we are in this state compared to many other states in the nation, where all of our leaders basically get along, work for the people's best interest, communicate with each other, and try and work regionally. Rebecca and I have both said to each other, and Lizzie, over and over again, how we just have never seen this level of regional cooperation with neighbors helping neighbors. And that means people who live next to each other, and it means cities and towns that are next to each other. All of the labels that we usually have seem to have dropped away, and that's a good thing. I only hope and pray we can carry it forward into the future and into the recovery. MAPC has done so much over the course of the past several months to help our cities and towns and our neighborhoods and communities to deal with this crisis. Everything from becoming experts on issues of testing and contact tracing, to delivering emergency monies, either through our Homeland Security Fund or through the state's emergency funds to public health departments, to our heroes at the Health and Medical Coordinating Council for helping to deliver PPE, personal protective equipment, to those in need at hospitals, at healthcare facilities, at nursing homes, at congregate elderly, and in other places. And all the time that this has been going on, we have been striving to be a bridge of communication between all of our city and town leaders and the Commonwealth. With so much, the natural inclination, I think, in our state government is to think very seriously about the perspective of municipal government and to communicate as best they can. But everybody is under so much pressure and has so many demands that sometimes the communication can fall a little bit aside. And we have been working to deal with that every single day. We have phone calls with municipal officials and scientists on Sunday afternoons so that they will be able to keep track, local officials will be able to keep track about some of the basic science behind the illness and what we're seeing in the trends and the models. The Lieutenant Governor, Secretary Keneally, and others have made themselves available every Friday morning for calls with local officials. We have a team of over 100 local officials, a smaller group of 21 local officials, and then kind of a rapid response team of about 8. And Lizzie Wayant and our folks at Government Affairs, Mark Fine at Municipal Collaboration, and Amy Riley, Barry Keppard at Public Health, and of course, Rebecca. We've been doing a tremendous amount of work to keep those calls going, to establish agendas, and to provide real information. We could do none of it without 2 of our leaders who are represented here today, Mayor Joe Curtatone from Somerville, who chairs the Metro Mayors Coalition, and Mayor Kim Driscoll from Salem, who chairs the North Shore Coalition. They have been our go-to people for connections with local government and between local government and the Commonwealth. And now we have to look forward to the reopening and the recovery. There are many different opinions about the timing and pace of reopening. Honestly, I'll be straightforward with you, as most local and state officials know who are on this call. I tend to prefer the slower path. But there's one thing that all of us know, and that is that there does have to be a reopening at some point, and it does need to lead to recovery. And the steps that we carefully lay out at this point in time will determine whether or not that reopening and recovery is successful. Successful from an economic perspective, but even more important, successful from a public health and safety perspective. We do not want to see us go back to a situation of another surge. We want to be able to find and quickly isolate people who are ill to prevent the spread of the illness. We want to work with our local communities to establish robust municipal testing systems so that we can monitor the disease. And we also want to make sure that the terrible inequities in our society, which have been unmasked if they needed unmasking, by the patterns of illness and death over the course of the past 2 months, do not occur again during the recovery. We especially want those frontline communities, and sometimes the word community is geographic, sometimes the word community is another kind of group who has been hard hit by age, by race, by income, by working status. We want to make sure that those communities grab onto the ladder of recovery, and the rest of us need to help to boost them up in that direction. We will have many difficult decisions to make over the course of the next several months, not the least of which are decisions facing my former colleagues, members of the House and Senate, and the governor in determining a good budget for fiscal 21 when revenues will be strained, but when the needs have never been greater. We are going to have to communicate with each other. We are going to have to consider those difficult choices and bring to Marshall the best wisdom we possibly can to make sure that those decisions are well made and that they always keep in mind folks that are in greatest need. In greatest need for a very long time, or in greatest need because of the impact of this pandemic. All of our staff are ready to work with you, and we're thankful for the votes that you took approving our budget today and approving the municipal assessment. Use every dime, all of our ingenuity, and all of our effort to support our cities and towns, to support our communities and neighborhoods, to help keep everybody safe, and to help make sure that our economy recovers as soon and as completely as possible. Some of the steps we take, all of us, are going to prove to have been the wrong ones. And it's important for us all to monitor ourselves honestly and openly. And when we see a mistake, to correct it quickly. I have seen more willingness over the course of the past 2 months for people to come forward and say, you know, we need to course correct, and then to do it. That is such an important part of planning and so much in the ethos of the planning profession. And we need to make sure that that's part of our action going forward. I don't know if you can see me putting my hand over my heart here. Substantially enough thank all of the members of my staff who have worked so hard. It sometimes seems like 24 hours a day and 7 days a week, particularly the very small number of people who are also coping with illness in their families, but also all of those folks who have children at home and working spouses sometimes, and for whom working from home cannot be easy all the time. And yet everybody has stepped up. I'm so thankful to them. I know that all of our cities and towns are, and we're going to go forward. And I think we're going to all accomplish some of our greatest accomplishments over the course of the next 6 months to a year. I'm excited to hear from the mayors. That discussion is going to be moderated by our Deputy Director, Rebecca Davis, who's played such a critical role in this effort over the past 2 months. And so I'm going to turn it over to Rebecca. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Well, I have the privilege to introduce two mayors who I have gotten to spend a lot of virtual time with over the last few months. As Mark mentioned, Mayor Curtatone and Mayor Driscoll, as the leaders of our two regional mayors coalitions, have stepped up really to become local, regional, and statewide leaders as we work as coordinating our municipal and statewide response to this crisis. What we're going to do today is have a little bit of a virtual conversation with them. First, talking a little bit about some of the struggles and challenges that we've seen with the COVID crisis, and then pivoting to talk about what do we need to do to focus on recovery. I'd ask you to use the chat function if you have questions that you would like to ask, and I'll be sure to ask them. We do want this to be interactive. So first, can we make sure we unmute the mayors? And I will turn it over to Mayor Curtatone first, the mayor of Somerville and the chair of the Metro Mayors Coalition. If you could talk a little bit of what are some of the biggest challenges that you've seen in addressing the COVID-19 crisis, and what have you learned over the last few months? Mayor Curtatone?
Thanks, Rebecca, and thanks to Mark and the entire MAPC staff and my close friend and colleague, even in a virtual world, Kim Driscoll, and all of you on the call. This is an unprecedented time. I think that goes without saying. I was thinking about what I'd say today, and there's a lot I'd say in terms of what the challenges are. It seems to change every day and evolve every minute. Part of the unpredictability or unclarity of what is probably the most tumultuous crisis in our lifetimes. Not only are we facing an international health emergency, we know our economy has been crippled, but there's a human toll happening. And I think we forget that. Not that I think, we are forgetting that as a society. They're behind every one of those almost 6,500 souls that we have lost to this crisis in Massachusetts, and about 100,000 in this country. That those are people who are part of our communities, our families, our lives, and they've been referred to almost as write-offs and acceptable losses, which for me, I think is one of the biggest challenges, is to implore people that cannot be the case. As we go through this conversation, I'm sure we'll talk about lessons learned and how do we move forward. For me, I've never been more proud to be a local official and to work with communities large and small who've stepped up from the very beginning as we tried to take on this crisis in an attempt to contain and then mitigate in preparation for the surge. And as we think about move forward, there's incredible leadership being displayed from all walks of life, for those in elected office in our communities, people with a real human focus on what they do. But also I want to give a shout out to the MAPC and all the other regional planning agencies. As I think one of the greatest challenges we're facing here, and I'll speak in the context of this conversation, is we've seen is how to address this when we have no formal regional form of government or county form of government to lead in the crisis. Much like when you saw the response in Washington, it was the regional and county level, which really, again, just emphasizes incredible decision-making and leadership at the local level. We're very parochial in Massachusetts. We're very provincial. That has posed an incredible challenge in taking on a crisis like this. But it was cities and towns from the very beginning that moved the governor and the Commonwealth to eventually close all schools in the Commonwealth. And at the beginning, we knew from the experts who advised us that days meant lives, meant real human impact, and eventually issue statewide stay-at-home advisories. So I think the biggest challenge is how do we think about addressing crises like this? It's been evident every day when we don't have a regional form of government, which also speaks to the need and value of having the MAPC bridge that divide and other agencies like it around the Commonwealth. So hey, I look forward to this conversation, and I'm honored to serve with all of you.
Mayor Driscoll, if you could talk a little bit about how you've been facing some of the challenges over the last few months.
Sure. It's great to be with everybody, and definitely want to echo the comments of Joe and Mark in saluting the staff at MAPC. While all of us have been sort of collectively on these front lines trying to work operationally, we really needed somebody to be able to knit us together and to do the work in between meetings focused on areas of importance. The virus doesn't know city boundaries or town boundaries, and working collectively as a region had to be paramount in so many things. We're certainly made making decisions easier, understanding how colleagues were thinking about items and being able to coordinate with state officials. So that has been just, heightened. It happens during the normal course of events that we have MAPC and we see value there. This was even more so during a crisis like this. I think like all of you, many of you may know, I started my municipal experience in a planning department, right? So my heart always is with planning, community development efforts, economic development teams. I feel really comfortable in that area. And like many of you, I see that as sort of the glue in our community, thinking innovatively, filling out work on grants, really trying to understand how we can move forward in a community, pre-COVID, post-COVID, during COVID. And so for me, certainly, some of the key challenges are we are learning our way through this, right? There really wasn't a playbook that anybody could point to what to do when you are dealing with COVID. And the ability for us to be innovative thinkers and really rely on our staffs to help us through that while we were learning. I like to say building and flying. There was a lot of building. There still is a lot of building and flying going on at the same time. And getting comfortable with that and getting your community comfortable with that. That's a little bit of an anathema to how we typically work, right? We want to get input, seek comments, build consensus, drive consensus, develop a plan. And you can't do that in a time when you're facing a public health emergency, which meant we had to communicate a lot more, communicating effectively. I really feel like we can't over communicate at a time like this, telling folks what we know, what we don't know, what our approach is going to be, when we think we got something wrong, why we're pivoting a different direction as rules and regulations have changed for various aspects of life that never had rules and regulations. Being able to do so was really, really critical. And then bringing together experts. Joe deserves a tremendous amount of credit very early on when coronavirus started up, saying, hey, I have access to some of the world-renowned epidemiologists, and I need to share this information with others. And being able to get us collectively in the room, I think was very helpful. And right away, you saw the typical collegial relationships we have even being strengthened when we're on the front lines. You're in local government, there is nowhere to run or hide, right? There's no state house, there's no capital. We're on those front lines, and we need to provide answers. We need to be accurate. There's certainly a pressure point that comes with that, but there's an incredible opportunity to influence the place where you live and you love. And I feel really, really, pleased to be in a leadership position and honored, but also recognizing that we need each other as we're making these decisions. And MAPC has certainly been a part of that, and collectively colleagues across cities and towns, all of those relationships have been strengthened. I hope you're feeling that too.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm wondering, and folks, please feel free to type some questions into the chat function. As we're thinking and really moving, I guess, in the first phase of reopening, what do you guys each think we should be thinking about as we move through this reopening process? What do you think are the most important things for us to focus on, or some of the challenges you see as we kind of move through these phases?
So go ahead, Kim.
I'll start with a couple, but I think we probably share a lot of the same thinking here. I'm really worried about our small business community hanging on to make the reopening date, whatever it might be for their particular industry. Like many of our smaller or medium-sized cities and towns, we've got this, funky mix of businesses mostly independents, not overly capitalized downtown. We're also a tourist destination, so we've got some quirkiness attached to what we see for downtown businesses. You know, restaurants of large size and small sizes, and they're all hurting, and they're all hurting because they don't have customers coming through the door. Yet we know the public health data is really important that we follow. So trying to find ways to support the small business community when we don't have a boatload of money, we're worried about our own budget, but really need to make sure that we're doing everything we can to keep them healthy. We started communicating early, formed an economic development, recovery, and revitalization task force. That taught us a lot in terms of what their key needs were. And so we're focused on 3 areas right now. That's PPE, equipment and supplies, outdoor everything, right? If I said to my team, there's no crazy ideas in COVID world, right? In COVID time, everything is a possibility. And then the third one is robust marketing. There is an opportunity to take the esprit de corps we're all feeling in our communities to infuse it into a real shop local effort, dine local effort. And so we're putting together some tent posts around how we guide that work and how we make investments in that work, and how we might recapitalize some of our existing meals and hotel taxes to support those efforts. Scary times.
Yeah, let me add, I agree with everything Kim said, and let me add to it. You know, we need to be guided. There should be 2 guiding styles: ensuring public health and making sure any recovery is sustainable. My fear is, and everyone should be, that we seem to be spiking the football of victory here. We haven't won anything yet. And the disease is going to continue to be as contagious. It's going to continue to be as deadly. People will continue to fall ill and die. And you know, there was a comment in an article which I agree with, and I've been utilizing since. There's this inherent compact between all of us. And in the business world, I use this because my father was a hairdresser more than 20 years, and we still haven't opened salons here in Somerville. So I speak from personal experience and someone who desperately needs a haircut, that you know, in order to build consumer confidence, we need to build on public trust. Public trust is going to depend upon whether or not the public views our decisions as ensuring the public health of the people within our workforce, the people that work for us, our customers, and the communities at large. And what really would be detrimental or undercut all that is the fact that the Commonwealth's still not where it should be. And I'll speak of Massachusetts in terms of the level of testing, contact tracing, case tracking. And you know, we see it. I hear from my consumers. I hear from my businesses say they don't know if their customers are saying they may not come back, or they're going to stay away for a while. So the more we can push on that, not just as individual communities, but as regions, to the administration to continue to drive that should be the priority. I think the better position we are to, one, not just say, but prove what they plan, which still has not been outlined, that we are able to respond to what we know is going to occur. We're going to have a resurgence. But how can we respond surgically and strategically to any outbreaks or spikes rather than a broad swath, a blunt instrument of shutting everything down again? That would be highly catastrophic for our economy if that happens again. But we need to understand that we are living in the context that this virus isn't going away. There is no magic pill coming or shot coming in the fall. And yeah, so I think that's our greatest challenge. One of our biggest challenges in moving forward, and things we should be focused on as we think about reopening, is really thinking about how we're going to live in a resurgence.
Hey, Rebecca, can I just add one thing? Because I definitely see some comments in the chat space. I think the other challenge for us, while we're, you know, trying to empathize, provide assistance, and lead through this effort, is not having it lost on us that we've also got an opportunity to rethink how we put Humpty Dumpty back together again. You know, do schools have to have the same agrarian calendar? Does our downtown and our streets have to give so much space for parking? The same businesses that would have been killing me if I said, I'm gonna take your parking and put outdoor street furniture in there, are now coming to us to say, hey, what if we take over that parking lot, you know, to allow for outdoor activities? And there's an opportunity for us to sort of get above the treetops and think about how we build back a more resilient, more livable community. And we're certainly trying to focus on that while providing that immediate assistance, right? We're all looking for ways to use public property in a different light. And I think the ability to share good ideas that people have to do that is another strength of MAPC, to be able to make sure that small towns, large cities, you know, whatever category you fit in, you know, have a capacity build extra by virtue of sharing some of the ideas and experiences that the innovations that are coming within our own communities. But we need to, if we don't capitalize on this when we're rebuilding our communities, I think it'll be a lost opportunity as we think about the aftermath of all of this.
Yeah, and building off of Jared's comment in the chat function, what are some things that you're each thinking about as we think about recovery, kind of steps? I'm sure everyone on the phone, a lot of them are really struggling with this, how to reutilize public space, how do we rethink about transportation or even housing? So how are you approaching that? And how are you approaching kind of the public facing side of that, bringing your constituents along?
So Kim alluded to this, and like Salem and other cities, we're trying to understand how, as part of our original efforts, how do we reclaim the public realm? How do we take this moment to rethink about how we create communities at a human scale, building a city for people, not cars? It's going to be part of our solution, either operationally to help our small businesses, but also in terms of our mental recovery as a society. We need to be prepared from a health perspective to interrupt the transmission of the virus from one person to another. But people are also going incredible amount of mental and emotional duress because of the uncertainty, stress, and isolation of the situation. We can utilize our planning and ability and collaboration to think about how we reclaim part of that public realm as a way to ease people's tensions, to give them relief. We know we're not going to be able to be locked down, keep people locked down forever. We need to get people out. We need to have them enjoy some sort of social interaction, meeting all the safety guidelines. Because again, there's an incredible amount of mental duress being imposed on folks. And this is also an opportunity to utilize that approach to address a lot of the inequities in our communities. I think Mark mentioned this at the beginning. This crisis has certainly made some things glaringly obvious, if we didn't already know it, that the economy doesn't work for all. The healthcare in this country certainly feels a significant number of our population. And this disease has hit those on the less fortunate side of the socioeconomic scale, Black, brown people, immigrants, and seniors harder than anyone else. That's the higher rates of transmission, the highest number of deaths. And here's an opportunity for us as we think of how we collaborate, not with the business community, but to understand, leverage our values to recapture part of our community to, one, not only activate our local economies, but build upon the social equity of our community.
Yeah, I would just say, I think we're trying to be bold in our thinking and letting folks know, like, we're going to make some mistakes, right? There's going to be things that we're going to try that aren't going to work. And how do we get out of the way of innovation? We've got some amazing entrepreneurs in our community who have done really cool things, and freeing up their thinking so that, yeah, the open container law in the park across the street, when you buy a $20 pizza and craft beer 4-pack, you can drink it there and we're probably not going to arrest you. Trying to think about ways to close the digital divide. I don't know that would have been the top thing on our list, but now with remote learning being so necessary, and frankly, we're pushing out so much information digitally. You can't rely on your local newspaper as your key source of information. We just surveyed our residents, and the large majority of them said they're getting their news from our website and social media. So we've got to play in that space. And for older adults who not only may not have internet connection, may not have the technological savvy or a device. So we've got to now sort of think about pivoting. How are we gonna update folks' abilities and capacity to get information that's necessary? If we can figure out how to set up community testing models, we can figure out how to address digital divide. So it's also, I think, an opportunity to empower staff. And everyone's looking for a job. Everyone wants to help participate. We really got to maximize the esprit de corps that's happening in our communities. And I think some of the best ideas will come from people we've never heard of before, who live in our city or town, and said, hey, how about, and trying to find space for that kind of thinking to take place. And lastly, I guess, standing up to the whole group that you all know are going to say, we can't do that, we can't do that, we can't do that, we can't do that. You know who they are, who's going to be there, who's going to say it. And this platform in particular, there's a lot of things that are going to be with us. We have more people participating in council meetings and school committee meetings and all of our board and commission hearings than we've ever had. So this tool will be with us, and how do we use that to make sure we're connecting with people that we haven't connected with? I still worry about that group. the folks who aren't as engaged, and yet we need to really hear from.
Great. Well, I just want to personally thank you both. You really have been inspirational leaders to watch throughout this crisis, both how you're leading your own communities, being innovative, but then really stepping up and helping lead us as a region to work together. As Mark said, I've really never seen this level of regional collaboration. So thanks to everyone on the phone. I know you all are on the call. You're all working so hard. At MAPC, we're going to continue to try to work with all of you on these issues, both through webinars, but also any technical assistance you might need. You know, we want to be there to help you put out some of those innovative processes and projects so that we can really move forward towards recovery in a more equitable way. I'm going to turn back over to our president, Aaron Wortman, so we can hear a little bit about Metro Common. Thank you so much, mayors.
Awesome. And thank you, both Mayor Curtatone and Mayor Driscoll. That was great. And I'm sure I'm not the only one that feels inspired by the conversation, and really appreciate you taking time to kind of have that conversation. So thank you again. So next up on the agenda is I'm going to call on Eric Hove to present a mini update on Metro Common 2050. So take it away, Eric.
All right, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here this morning. Thanks for hanging with us to the end. In preparation of this, I actually dug my dress shoes out of the closet for the first time in 2 months, put them on even though you can't see them. I let my daughter cut my hair, so I'm not quite so shaggy looking, but it is nice to see everybody on the video call. Oh, how the world has changed in just 2 months. And as you heard from Mark and others, so has our work. We've really had to pivot to much more immediate needs, but at the same time, the regional plan, Metro Common 2050, is still progressing. Metro Common 2050 will not be a pandemic plan, although it's been forged during this time of the pandemic. And we will try to learn the lessons that we're living every day and capitalize on the opportunities presented by the estranged time. This is in fact a great time to step back and plan for the long term, as we really are at an inflection point. The pandemic has laid bare the gaps and failures in our systems. It's brought to light vulnerabilities that were just maybe below the surface. We are now calling into question how we do things, and we are reimagining how to do things better. Right now, we are living and creating a new future, and we have the opportunity to make changes that are really transformative and that will last. We can and must think bigger. The pandemic has called into question a lot of assumptions about things like density, how we design our cities and towns, how we get around, how we commute, if we commute. And obviously it's brought to light a lot of equity implications. But if we are to really reach our goals that we set out as part of the Metro Common planning process for 2030 and 2050, we're going to have to, and these goals include greenhouse gas reduction, housing and economic stability, and climate adaptation, being prepared for the changing climate. We're really gonna have to figure out density. We're gonna have to figure out public transportation, and we're gonna figure out how to do a better job advancing justice. We can't all move to New Hampshire. We can't all drive our cars for every trip, and we aren't successful or sustainable when missing one paycheck means not being able to pay your rent. So just wanted to give you a brief update on where things are at. We're approaching the last year of the planning process. This is the plan architecture in terms of the main components of the pieces, and I'll talk a little bit about each of the three in subsequent slides. But like I said, we have laid out the goals and vision for 2050. So now it's a matter of figuring out the pathway of getting us there. We have 5 main action areas. These are the main containers of the plan. We are currently doing engagement around these right now, really figuring out how these systems work, understanding where these key leverage points in terms of where we can target actions to make the difference to reach our goals. Scenario planning, these are some draft results. We've been setting up models in terms of population and employment, and we're right now calibrating these models. But the scenario planning is going to allow us to be able to test different futures, different assumptions on demographics, transportation demand, and technology. And this will help us and decision makers figure out the impacts of our actions. Policy recommendations are going to be a key heart of the plan, and this work is already underway and will basically continue through the end of the plan as we end up with our final plan recommendations. This is not a Metro Common recommendation. This comes from our State of Equity policy agenda that we're updating as part of this plan, but the structure is going to be similar. We have the goals, and each of the 20 policy chapters will have strategies underneath them, and then discrete actions with specific actors for how to make progress in the region. And the engagement on the policy recommendations is actually going to be happening beginning this summer and really through the fall and into winter. And the final main component is research. A lot of this work is happening from our data services department and in collaboration with other departments. We've had a number of releases already, and we will continue to have research releases throughout the year. A few of the things that are on deck is work on speculation in the housing market, electric vehicle adoption, industrial displacement, and municipal workforce diversity. So stay tuned for those releases. In conclusion, the pandemic has shown us that health is really everything, including having access to stable and safe homes, fresh and nutritious foods. And as a region, we need to do a better job of meeting people's basic needs, but we also need to do much more than that to be a successful and thriving region. We need great and welcoming neighborhoods, world-class arts and culture, including sports. How I miss the Bruins. I'm hoping they come back soon. We need clean land, water and air, great schools, and a fair and vibrant economy. So our challenge just got harder, but together, apart, we can imagine and work for a greater Boston region. Thank you, and look forward to seeing you next time.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you for the really kind of quick, great touch on Metro Common. Really appreciate it. So next up on the agenda, I'm going to ask if there's any additional business not known at the time of posting the agenda. And yes, I should pause and say that Mark Dreesen is commenting in the chat function. So thank you, Eric, and your team for kind of doing all the work that obviously you've been doing over the last few months and how to pivot the new ideas into the plan during this pandemic. So thank you. Okay, so if there is no other additional business not known to the time of this posting, I'm
briefly, Erin.
Yep, sorry, you're minimized. Go ahead, Mark.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to say a few more thank yous if I could. First of all, to the enormous team of people, I cannot even name them all, Heidi and her whole team, not only from the administrative offices, but from other parts of the department, who have done so much work to make this a smooth meeting. It required months of preparation and endless run-throughs, and I want to thank them tremendously for that. And to some of you, and maybe even to him listening on YouTube, I just want to say, Tom would have been very proud of all of you. I also want to thank Erin. I don't get to thank my president very frequently, but she is one in a long line of gifts to the region who have worked so hard as the director or as the president of MAPC, and it's a pleasure to work with her. And I thank her for stepping up and doing this virtual meeting. And I want to thank all of you for spending your time with us this morning. Those numbers have remained remarkably strong at the bottom of the screen, and we appreciate your time and your wisdom and your effort. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. That's very nice. And I obviously appreciate you and all the staff, not just during COVID, but all the time, but I guess particularly during COVID. And I gotta say, I didn't mind this virtual meeting, not too bad. I can wear comfy pants and a more appropriate business top. So not a bad shake, so to say. And I gotta say the technical aspects, I agree with the comment section. The technical aspects of this meeting do not go unnoticed. I had the pleasure of having multiple dress rehearsals and technical run-throughs, but I think it's gone great, and I really appreciate that. So if there was no other business, I do see a motion. Oh, motion with appreciation. Okay, that was a motion for appreciation. The motion I am now seeking, beyond accolades to MAPC staff, is that we adjourn the May 27th, 2020 annual meeting. And if someone will utilize the chat function to do that. Jenny from Arlington moved to adjourn. Can I have a second? Oh, second, Sharonda. Thank you so much. All right, slow it down, everyone. All right, I'm going to call for the ayes first, and then the nays, and then abstentions. Yes, 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 yes. Great. Everyone is coming in with the ayes to adjourn. I will vote myself. Okay, great. We have a pause here. Anyone opposed? I'm going to do less of a pause. Any abstentions? I'm going to say that the motion passes. The meeting is adjourned 1 minute early. Go, everyone, at 11:29 on May 27, 2020. Thank you again, and please enjoy your day, and please be safe. Okay? Thank you.
Am I good to end the meeting for everyone? Rachel, Patrice, and Leah, you've all saved your chats?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks, everyone.
Great job, Sasha.